Welcome to another edition of the Business Acumen Show. I'm your host today, Greg Kalikas, sitting in for Roy Browning and Joe Manns. And today we have a very special episode of Business Acumen. We have our guest, the owner and founder of the Dijulius Group, Mr. John Dijulius. John, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So I guess the best place to start, I've always been curious how you got started doing what you're doing. You're heading up the customer service revolution, which we'll get into as we go. But what ultimately led you down this path? And obviously the success has been just incredible, but what got you started?
I actually love that question, and it's one that I love to share when I'm speaking to youth and college students, only because I feel like with all the, Facebook, quick get rich schemes, everyone seems to think they have to have it figured out by, 20. And all my primary careers were total accidents. And I think it's unfair, we're talking about, we have, college children, and I think it's a lot of pressure on them to think that they should know what they want to do for the next 60 years.
Sure.
Right? And, what I tell my kids is just go out and do stuff. Dig ditches, be really good at it. And that it's not, it says more about your character, how good you are when you're doing a job of something you're not passionate about than when you are. It's easy to be,
sure.
But when you're parking cars, digging ditches, and you do a great job of that, it opens up doors. So a long prelude to your question. I was driving a truck for UPS after I graduated from college, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and that's the only thing I knew. I wanted to own my own business, and the only thing I loved was sports. But there's no money in sports if you're not a player, and I certainly wasn't a professional athlete. So I always thought I'd open a sporting goods store. That was the only two things I could see that would tie together, and fortunately that didn't work out. But I met my eventual wife, and she was this great hairdresser, and so I thought, and UPS, this is in the late 80s, was this phenomenal paying job for me. It was golden handcuffs. When I graduated in the late 80s, the best offers I got out of college was, $20,000. But UPS was making $45,000 as a driver, which, was, I don't know what that would equate to today, but
That's great money.
It was great money. But I couldn't go anywhere else because I'd have to take a severe pay cut. But the other thing, I drove to work every day, and it said 29 years and 3 days, and I could retire, and I wanted to get old as fast as I could, just because it wasn't what I wanted to do, right?
Sure.
So I met my wife. She was this great hairdresser. We opened a small salon for her, and hoping that it would take off, and then I could quit this great paying job and go open my own business. And we failed, and she was this great hairdresser, but the way we didn't know what we were into. So I literally jumped in the salon business. And if you would have asked me if I'd ever be in the salon business full time, I would have bet you $1 million, no way. But I jumped in it, and between her technical expertise and my business acumen and customer service, we started killing it and growing. So there I just thought, we'd open a bunch of salons, and then as a result of our success and rapid growth, people started asking me to speak about customer service. And this is in the early 90s, and it was more of an ego thing. I was like, really? You want to hear me speak? And so I would do it, and then everything led to more and more and more until I eventually thought, maybe I can dabble in a career at this, not thinking it would ever be what it is today.
Which it's just become this international powerhouse, and I mentioned before the interview that our owners, they've read your books, watched the videos, they preach the John Dijulius gospel to our company. So obviously you've done some amazing things. You've worked with brands such as Lexus, Starbucks, Nordstrom, Panera, the list goes on and on. While you were working with these companies, was there a common thread or a common factor that ultimately led to the organization's success that you saw?
Their success or the Dijulius Group's?
Their success.
Yeah, we found, so when you rattle off some of our clients' names, no one bad hires us, which is like really crazy. The ones that you think need us, they don't think it's worth it. And the ones that are, crazy good are so paranoid about not, staying at that level. And so in the beginning, and still today, we learned more than we were probably teaching, and we'd see that they all had a formula, a methodology. What we didn't invent, but we just codified as the 10 Commandments, and they all are constantly working at the same thing. Whether the first thing was always a customer service vision statement, and that's who they'd attract and hire and retain employees based on. And then world-class internal culture. So there was just this methodology that we found that they all had in common. And once we codified it and wrote about it in a book, that became our methodology going forward for all our clients.
So, John, one thing I was very curious about as we were preparing for this interview, how has customer service changed from the brick and mortar stores and today's online shopping? Obviously, customer service is customer service, but did you notice any drastic changes between customer service in the 90s to customer service today?
Yeah, it's crazy. I would, obviously e-commerce is huge today, and brick and mortars have been almost pronounced dead. But e-tail really showed us what great customer service is. I mean, you can't find a business that's easier to work with than Amazon. Zappos, a lot of, and that they didn't put the companies out of business. Poor customer service put the companies out of business. But what we are seeing is with the technology disruption that everyone's going through, and artificial intelligence and chatbots, that the biggest disruptor today going forward is relationships. And the illiterate of the business world today are the ones that are incapable of building relationships. And that's not taught in school and in businesses. And and that's not a generational thing either. It's a touchscreen generation where we have our grandparents on Facebook. But that has, our people skills are inherently declining, and it's the businesses that are teaching their employees how to build genuine relationships and rapport and focus on other people are the ones that are going to benefit the most in the next decade.
Wow. So along those lines, obviously you're the owner and founder and president of the Dijulius Group, but your official title is the Chief Revolution Officer. So let's go there. What do you mean by creating a customer service revolution?
It's something we take very seriously. It is a radical shift of the way employees and customers are treated, which permeates into people's personal lives at home and the community, which in turn help the businesses produce more brand loyalty, employee retention, and makes price irrelevant.
So you're actually saying that when it comes to businesses, they can actually make price irrelevant to their customers?
They can. And what I mean by that is it doesn't mean we can double our fees or even raise our prices 25% tomorrow and not lose existing and potential customers. But what making price irrelevant does look like is based on the experience your brand consistently delivers, your customers have no idea what competition charges, right? So we're all price sensitive.
Sure.
And I've been, an idiot that's driven 3 extra miles, say 50 cents on something, not realizing I just lost in that exchange.
Right.
But we also, each of us as, consumers and as business people have companies we do business with, and we're so loyal to them that, sometimes, when I'm telling you got to use such and such, you might say, well, what do they charge? And sometimes I don't know. And it's not because I can afford anything,
right,
but I'm not out comparing to see if they're 5-10% less or more, because the trust that they've given me, I know, in a lot of cases, the cheaper you go, the more it'll cost you, right?
Yeah.
And paying a little bit more in the long run is probably the most economical peace of mind thing.
Wow. And one of the most interesting facts or statements that I read as I was preparing for this interview, that it's ultimately management's fault when frontline employees treat customers bad. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, anything that happens, where someone treats you bad always stems from how were they trained, and how good any company is at customer service really comes down to their service aptitude. And service aptitude is not innate, and this is really where a leadership paradigm shift has to happen. Everyone thinks customer service is common sense. None of us were born with it. I didn't have it. You know, when you know, none of us, you know, grew up driving Mercedes Benz when we turned 16, flying first class on a regular basis, staying at five-star resorts. But the moment we got a job, we were expected to give that type of experience, and that's unfair. We didn't have those type of experiences. So, you know, service aptitude comes from three primary places: previous life experiences, which I just outlined; previous work experiences, which, you know, everyone we're hiring, unless we have a direct pipeline to, you know, Ritz-Carlton employees or Disney employees, which no one does, your next generation of employees have worked somewhere else that probably wasn't world class, and they, you know, were probably trained to be suspicious and paranoid. And then we get them, and you know, we being anyone, and you know, they might be treating our platinum VIP client like they're trying to get away with something. It's not their fault. The only thing we can control, a company can control, is what we do with them after we hire them. And the service app, it can't be just operational, product knowledge training. We have to train them on how to build rapport, how to make brilliant comebacks when we drop the ball, how to show empathy and compassion.
Along those lines, when you're trying to build a world-class organization, what would you say is more important? Is it making the right hire or the training that you put into that hire?
That's a great question. The obvious answer is both. But if you know, when someone pushes me and I got to give 51% to one of those, I will take the training and culture we bring new employees into over hiring new employees. Now, that doesn't mean anyone should start reactively hiring anyone. But do we really think Disney found 50,000 employees born to serve? Right? I don't think there's probably 500 human beings born to serve. But what Disney says that I love, they say we don't put our new people in Disney. We put Disney in our new people.
Wow.
Love that.
Wow.
Right?
That's pretty powerful.
So that's the training there.
So I've heard you say world class starts at the top. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so, you know, if you ask anyone what are world-class brands that they know of or experience, and not necessarily mom and pops, but you know, they would say Disney and Southwest and Virgin Airlines and Nordstrom's and Zappos and Amazon, you know, maybe Starbucks, Chick-fil-A. And, you know, then when you see why the person running their company, the person that founded their company is obsessed. Like, you can't read an interview or watch a video, and the topic could be on anything, and they always bring it back to customer service. And you can also tell when companies are lousy, right? Spirit Airlines is the worst, you know, airline in the U.S. You know how bad it is? You know how hard it is to be the worst airline?
That's pretty tough.
There's a lot of competition, yeah, right?
That's
so, but you can also tell why. I mean, their founder is just, you know, just has a horrible attitude about passengers and, you know, penalizes people. You know, there's a, you know, story that a Vietnam vet booked a flight to go see his daughter, and like a week later found out that he had esophagus cancer, and he only had like, you know, a month to live. And they wouldn't refund his money because he should have bought insurance.
That's incredible.
Yeah, yeah, so.
One thing that I found very interesting, I read where you say companies need to stop creating policies and using the word policy when it comes to their customers and employees. But wouldn't that leave the door open for the customer or potentially the employee to take advantage of the company?
Yeah, you know, I'm not about punishing 98% of the customers for what 2% might get away with. Policy's a very dangerous thing to say. Not have. It's okay to have it. I wouldn't call it policy, but there's two reasons. One, we've all been a customer where policy's been thrown in our face, and it ticks us off, right? We've been coming here for years. I know the owner, you know, we're personal friends, and I know you created policy to protect yourself from the masses. I'm not the masses, I'm John, right? But worse, what policy does to an employee mindset, employees will never go against policy. And policy is black and white with walls, and you get in trouble, you can get fired, which then strips them of common sense, creative innovations to solve a problem. And, you know, we've done, you know, even my company 20 years ago has done, you know, stupid things because it was our policy. And, you know, I trust my employees. They'll never get in trouble for something they do. They'll get in trouble for something they don't do.
Yep, I've heard that a few times.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of your book is how you've helped companies create their never and their always list, which you would think would be common sense. But from my experience, I always see the never side of things.
Yeah.
I never see the always. How do you explain that?
Yeah, so, when you deal with world-class companies, there's certain things that would never happen or always happen. Would you ever expect to go to Disney and see a cast member on break chewing tobacco, spitting on the pavement? No, of course not. Would you ever expect to go to a Ritz-Carlton and ask an employee where the restroom is and they, snap at you and say they work in housekeeping and storm away? No. So, we create help companies create a real simple list of nevers and always. Never point, always show. Never say no, always focus on what you can do. Doesn't mean everything's a yes. Just don't say no.
Sure.
My biggest pet peeve is never say no problem, right? No problem's a big problem for two reasons. One, it's two negative words. We shouldn't be using any. But if you ask me for more water, and I say, no problem, that's implying to you it's not inconvenient for me. When we're serving others, it's not about my convenience, it's about yours. It's almost saying you're lucky I only have to go over there to get your water, otherwise we'd be having a big problem. Right? Instead, say, certainly, my pleasure, absolutely. A couple more. Never overshare. Just make it right. Just, find a solution. So it's little low-hanging fruit. Never show frustration publicly. I want a bunch of ducks. Always be a duck. A duck is the most graceful, beautiful thing gliding across the water when no one sees or knows as it's paddling like hell underneath, right? So, it's a simple list of nevers and always that if you should deal with anyone from your brand, we would never do it this way. We'd always do it this way.
You said today that we are living in a relationship economy. What does that mean to you?
So, as I said earlier, today's, business illiterate is not the ones that can't read or write, but it's the ones that can't make meaningful relationships. And that is, at an all-time horrible low. And, we're a touchscreen generation. And we communicate with people, over devices. And we don't know how to build rapport. And when we do get in front of people, it could be about us, my flight, my son getting in trouble, my client. And so we have to help our employees create systems to build relationships where we focus on the other person for the whole time. And just because someone had a conversation with a customer, a neighbor that lives 3 doors down from them for 15 minutes doesn't mean you built a relationship, right? It could have been all about me when I was talking. So we always talk about if you just had a conversation with someone and the way you can prove to me that you built a relationship is you should know 2 or more things that they're Ford, F-O-R-D. Family, are they married? Do they have kids? How old are their kids? Sure. Occupation, right? What do they do for a living? What's their title? How long they've been doing it? Recreation, right? What do they like to do with their free time? Fish, runner, sports, whatever it might be. And then dreams. What's on their bucket list? And when you build systems in your personal life or in your professional life to focus on other people's Ford, it gets it off you because, we're all genetically coded to be, about us. It's not a bad thing, but we can't be building relationships if it's about us. So, we really focus, and, even to the personal, when me and my 3 boys travel, we play the Ford game, which is who can find out the most personal information of a total stranger.
Wow.
So in my world, it's okay to talk to strangers as long as Dad's there, right? But it's hilarious because we'll be drilling the poor Uber driver, with a million questions peppering them.
Yep.
But it's also amazing to see someone light up when they're asked about them and where they came from and what it took to get here. And that's when the magic really happens.
Ford, remember that. That's very useful, especially with what we do here at JMC Brands. That's a good bit of advice to take home. Before the interview, you were talking about an upcoming project that you have, and I have to ask about it. You're going to be working with the country of Qatar to get them ready for the upcoming World Cup. How does one train an entire country when it comes to customer service? I've got to know about this.
Yeah, and we've already started, and their World Cup is in 2022, which is less than 4 years away. And while that seems like a long time, as you said, training an entire country That's a big project. So it's that eating that elephant one bite at a time, starting with the first experience someone might have when they step off an airplane, security, immigrations, airport, and making sure that they greet you no different than how you should be greeted by a concierge. Not weakening the security aspect, but to be friendly. When someone hands you a passport, say, "Oh, you're coming in from the U.S. How was your trip here?" Right? To taxi cab drivers and Uber drivers, to all concierges and tour guides and all that. And it's really exciting. And Qatar wants to be known as, the most amazing tourist experience any visitor can have, whether you're there for the FIFA World Cup in 2022 or you've just heard how great it was. And so they want to redefine the whole experience so they just don't benefit off this one, sporting event that is something that will garner them national world attention, that people will start seeing it as a special place to go tour.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
If you could give an up-and-coming service team director one bit of advice, and I would fall into that category, what would that be?
About building a world-class customer service
Yes,
organization? It's just, be obsessed. Customer service is not something you do annually. Otherwise, it's like deodorant, right? And it wears off and the odor comes back. It has to be something that gets visited every day with your team and with yourself, from reading books to, talking about a day in the life of your client, right? What are your clients going through before they even pick up the phone to speak to your team? What are their pains? What are they dealing with? Their potential. They got their life at home. They got their kids. They got the aging parents. They got clients they're trying to sign. They're losing, retaining clients. And then they got their, obviously the things that you directly can make their life better. But when we look at them and a day in their life, before they even come in contact with us, it makes us more present. Instead of treating them as a 10:30 phone call, a 3 o'clock podcast, 201 bed B, as a hospital can look at someone, and as someone that, Greg, who is, who's raising a son and who's trying to, get the business to another level. And not only does he need my presence, right, and to be in the moment, but he also needs my expertise to help him, get there.
Absolutely.
And so I think that really helps us when we think about our clients and what they're going through from their perspective. It really makes us have more compassion and empathy instead of looking at them as next, right?
Makes a lot of sense. One last question for you. You had mentioned that you were in the process of writing a new book.
Yes.
Can you give us a little intel on what that book will be about?
Yeah. Well, you've mentioned it a few times. It is called The Relationship Economy.
There you go.
And that's really what it is. It's just, in the radical, there's nothing easier to copy today than technology. And, in years past, if you came out with a good innovation, it might give you a competitive advantage for 6 to 18 months. Now, technology advances, can be duplicated, replicated. I mean, any of your listeners that have driven in Uber or Lyft, I can't tell the difference between the two apps. I mean, they are identical.
Yep.
And so anything anyone comes out with technology, while it's great, it could be mirrored within, a very short amount of time. So the real disruptor is the ones that could build meaningful relationships and not treat people as a next or account number or the things that we've all, gotten, the way we've been treated the past 10, 15 years.
That's outstanding. And when will that book be available?
Summer of 2019.
All right. But in the meantime, you can pick up The Customer Service Revolution. John, if people wanted to reach out to you and schedule an event or get a book or just learn more about what you offer, what's the best way for them to go about that?
Our website, thedijuliusgroup.com. Everything's on there, schedules and when we have events, videos, YouTube. On my YouTube channel, I probably have 150 2-minute videos of little vignettes that they could show their team on something. So
The Day in the Life of a Customer is a video that
Yeah.
that I would definitely recommend. Check that one out. Well, John, thanks again for stopping in
Thank
today.
you.
It was an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you here today. I know this was a very insightful episode for our listeners. Thanks to you guys for tuning in today. We'll catch you again very soon.
To learn more, follow us online at summitup.biz. If you found value in this podcast, please leave us a review. See you next time.